Christy Lynn Carroll was born to parents Ted and Cricket on July 25, 1976, and grew up in Tennessee, where she loved to rescue abandoned and injured animals. Christy, a friendly and outgoing girl, was very close to her mother and grandparents. At 18, she was a mother herself, raising an 18-month-old daughter named Brittany. Living with her mother Cricket in the rural town of Hohenwald, Tennessee, Christy navigated the joys and challenges of motherhood until her life was sadly cut short. On Saturday, February 4th, 1995, Christy had plans to stay at her friend Kim Burleson's place. She also had plans to go to her grandmother's house for lunch the following day. That night, Christy and Kim went to a local bar. Around 11:20 p.m., Christy's younger brother Ted and 3 of his friends stopped by to hang out. Christy asked one of the friends to drop her off at Kim's, but he couldn't because he had to pick up his mother from work. So Kim found another ride home, and Christy went with her brother and his friends as they drove around town because they weren't ready to go to bed. After a few minutes, they saw 2 more friends, Daniel Lay and Eric Amaker, who offered to give Christy a ride to Kim's, and she accepted. After that, just a few minutes before midnight, Sheriff Deputy Lloyd Sherman and his partner happened upon a car sitting on the side of the road in the freezing weather halfway between Christy and Kim's houses. When the deputy approached the car, he encountered Christy, Daniel, and Eric. Daniel told the officer that the car overheated and they didn't need help. 2 hours later, at 2 a.m., deputies responded to a call reporting a suspicious man walking on the side of a road near where the overheated car was located. Upon investigating, they found Eric walking alone without Daniel and Christy down a street close to the highway where the 3 were last seen. He had wrecked a car in a ditch and was leaving the scene, but it was a different car than the one he was driving earlier that night. At this point, it was unclear where Christy and Daniel were. The next day, Christy never showed up for lunch at her grandmother's house. Initially angry that she was late, Christy's mother and grandmother called around to see if any of her other friends knew where she was. On Monday, February 6, 1995, Christy's mother went to the police station to report her daughter missing, ignoring the then required 72-hour wait. 30 minutes later, Christy's body was discovered by the mail carrier lying next to the driveway near the mailbox of the home she shared with her daughter and mother. She was barefoot, with a bloody face and muddy clothes. Her pants legs were rolled up, and her shirt, which had been ripped in the front and back, was up, exposing her stomach. Her mother said she came and went from her home several times on Sunday and Monday and never saw her daughter's bloody body next to the driveway. Several family friends also walked past the area where Christy was supposedly found. None of them saw her either. Despite this, police told the media that Christy's body was found in a ditch, but no ditch exists on the property. The so-called non-existent ditch was simply a dip created by the tire of a log truck because there was no ditch on this property. At the time, the coroner who performed her autopsy, Dr. Charles Harlan, was barred from performing autopsies due to an ongoing investigation of malfeasance. He ruled her death as accidental hypothermia. However, Christy's injuries told a different story. Her face was covered in blood, with visible contusions on her groin and thigh. Her clothes were filthy, her shirt was ripped and pulled up, and her pants were pulled down, yet no sexual assault kit was performed. Her jewelry remained on, but her shoes were missing. Despite these clear signs of foul play, Harlan ruled her death as hypothermia without conducting essential forensic tests. The autopsy reported 2 different blood alcohol levels, 0.01 and 0.10. Coagulated blood was found in Christy's stomach, possibly indicating internal bleeding from trauma. Daniel and Eric gave conflicting accounts of what happened the night Christy died. They first claimed they propositioned Christy, but she declined, and they dropped her off at her home between 12:30 and 1 a.m., with Eric walking her to the door. Eric later changed his story, saying he only dropped her off halfway up the driveway and watched to make sure she made it to the door safely. The final version stated that she fell in the driveway as they drove away. In October 1995, Eric offered to give a new statement in exchange for immunity, but D.A. Joe refused. Agent Tenery, assigned to investigate, dismissed concerns because he knew Eric's family and called him a good boy. The district attorney's office refused to investigate further, with Joe going so far as to say Christy was nothing more than a whore. Christy's case has been mishandled from the start, and now her daughter is fighting to have her mother's body exhumed for a second autopsy. The initial autopsy, performed by Dr. Harlan, whose medical license was later revoked, was riddled with incompetence. Key forensic tests were never conducted, and crucial details were overlooked. Dr. Harlan was banned from the TBI's lab the same year he performed Christy's autopsy, and his contract was discontinued. However, he continued to misrepresent his credentials and was ultimately found guilty of 18 charges of incompetence and negligence and stripped of his license. To give a few examples listed in the court documents in the matter of Dr. Harlan versus the State of Tennessee Department of Health, in 1999, the family of a deceased requested official documentation to provide the bank to verify the death. Dr. Harlan responded by writing on a blank piece of paper, and I quote, "ML is dead," and faxed it to the bank. Dr. Harlan wrote on his letterhead, when asked for further details regarding the death, "ML is dead, she is green and has maggots crawling on her," and once again faxed it to the bank. In another example of his lackluster work, in 1997, he performed an autopsy on an infant. He listed the cause of death as sudden infant death syndrome, otherwise known as SIDS, despite the presence of cocaine and alcohol in the child's system. During a murder trial for the infant, Dr. Harlan claimed that he used a dirty instrument to draw the samples, which caused the cocaine and alcohol to be found. The father confessed to giving the child alcohol and blowing marijuana smoke in the child's face, with the possibility the marijuana was laced with cocaine. The list goes on and can be seen online as proof of his horrific incompetence and lackluster attitude. As for the suspects, Daniel is now deceased, and Eric is still living in the same small town. Recently, on January 1st, 2024, the sheriff stepped down. Just 2 days later, a reporter visited the crime scene, the spot where Christy was dumped. A new sheriff will be appointed on February 24th, and then sworn in on March 17th. There is hope that a new sheriff might take another look at the case. You can contribute by signing the petition to demand the exhumation of Christy's body and a full reinvestigation. Her daughter, Brittany, now a mother herself, is fighting for answers. Let's help her get some long overdue justice. Christy was found dead on February 5, 1995, and as of February 2025, this case remains unsolved. Eric Conrad Haider was born on June 9, 1981, to Edwin and Mary Ellen. He graduated from Century High School in Bismarck, North Dakota, and then attended Bismarck State College. At age 30, Eric was the father of a 12-year-old daughter named Bryn and a son named Michael, and lived in Lincoln, North Dakota. On the morning of May 24, 2012, Eric and 6 coworkers had carpooled from Bismarck to the job site in Dickinson. He worked for Cofell's Plumbing and Heating, and they had been working on a sewer main project behind the Baker Hughes complex on Highway 22. That morning, he hugged and kissed his mother, Mary Ellen Suchin, before heading off to work. She had no idea it would be the last time she would ever see him. That day, the crew went to Wendy's for lunch around 11 a.m., where Eric sat alone. Earlier in the morning, he had asked for time off to help his girlfriend's parents brand cattle, but his request had been denied. I definitely wonder why he was sitting alone, but it could be because he was upset about not getting the day off. His foreman, Jack Bettenhausen, later told police that Eric had returned to the site at noon, but within 15 minutes, he was nowhere to be found. By 2 p.m., coworkers attempted to call his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That evening, they packed up and returned to Bismarck without him. They also took his belongings with them that he left behind, including his lunchbox, backpack, and paycheck, which had been distributed that morning. His girlfriend, Jody Houston, was waiting to pick him up, but when she arrived, she was told he had been missing from the job site all afternoon. Concerned, Jody reached out to Eric's mother, who hadn't heard from him since that morning. They then reported him missing. Eric was known as a reliable and responsible worker, which made his sudden disappearance deeply suspicious. 2 days later, on May 26, the Dickinson Police Department organized a search party using cell phone pings to track his last known location, but nothing was found. As time passed, his mother, Mary Ellen, grew increasingly frustrated with law enforcement. She felt they had dismissed her concerns, and at one point was told that she didn't know her son and that he had simply walked off. Another investigator reportedly remarked that if he had known Eric was a criminal, he wouldn't have wasted his time searching. For 3 years, the case remained unsolved, with little progress and few leads. Rumors began spreading that Eric had been accidentally buried during work, while others suggested he had been intentionally harmed. In May 2015, after 3 years of searching, Eric's remains were discovered by construction workers who were excavating water and power lines in the same area where he had last been seen. When his body was unearthed, it was located just 6 to 10 feet from where police had originally searched years earlier. Eric's left hand, still wearing a red work glove, was the first part of his body to be uncovered. His yellow hard hat was positioned beneath his face. His remains were found in a crouched, kneeling position, as if he had pulled his knees to his chest and wrapped his arms around them in a protective manner. The condition of the burial suggested that dirt had been pushed on top of him while he was either seated or standing and forced to the ground. A forensic pathologist later stated that the position of his body indicated that he had likely been working on a pipe at the time of his death and that he had been buried alive. His pacemaker recorded his time of death as 12:19 p.m., only 5 minutes after 2 coworkers had begun backfilling the trench he had been working in. Despite the discovery of his body, no cause of death could be determined due to decomposition. Some believed his death had been an accident that was concealed, while others suspect foul play, saying he might have witnessed something he wasn't supposed to. 2 coworkers had been operating heavy machinery at the time Eric was buried. Given the circumstances, charges of manslaughter or gross negligence could have been pursued, but prosecutors determined there was not enough evidence to proceed. Also, OSHA wasn't able to investigate because the statute of limitations had expired. In North Dakota, the statute of limitations for manslaughter and negligent homicide runs out after 3 years, and by the time Eric's remains were discovered, it was too late. Stark County State's Attorney Tom Henning ultimately declined to file criminal charges. He later admitted that his decision did not necessarily mean a crime hadn't occurred, but explained that there was no way to determine who was responsible. Eric Haider suspiciously died on May 24, 2012, and as of February 2025, this case remains unsolved. Phyllis Rome was born deaf and mute on March 16, 1971, and went by the nickname Niecy. At 22, she was living in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and despite her hearing impairment, she had a deep love for music, as she could feel its vibrations and enjoy dancing to it. Unfortunately, during the summer of 1993, she strangely disappeared. On the evening of June 19, 1993, Phyllis was last seen about a mile from her home at Red's Blues Club around 8 p.m. After leaving, she was never seen again. There was also a possible sighting of her near Tony's liquor store, which would have been in the direction of her home, but that sighting has never been confirmed. Shortly after her disappearance, the Clarksdale Police Department announced that Phyllis was no longer considered missing because an official had allegedly set eyes on her at the Coahoma County Courthouse, about a mile from where she was last seen. However, they later retracted this statement, confirming that Phyllis was still missing. As for the night Phyllis went missing, it remains unclear whether she walked to the bar or caught a ride. It's also unknown who she was with that night. Following her disappearance, rumors circulated that Phyllis had been murdered and her body disposed of in downtown Clarksdale. However, police searches in the area yielded no evidence. On the night Phyllis disappeared, she was wearing light blue polka-dotted shorts, a white shirt, blue socks, and white sneakers. She had several distinctive features, including a tattoo of the name Mark on her upper left arm, the initial D on her middle finger, and multiple piercings in her ears and nose. Phyllis Rome went missing on June 19, 1993, and as of February 2025, her case remains unsolved. On April 18, 1984, a grisly discovery shattered the peace of Altoona, Florida. Deep in the Lake Door recreation area, about a quarter-mile off Highway 19, skeletal remains were found scattered by animals along a dirt road. The body, decomposed beyond recognition, belonged to a young woman who had been dead for 2 to 4 weeks. With no means of identifying her, the townspeople called her Jane Altoona Doe 1984, but investigators soon nicknamed her Judy Doe, based on an unsettling account from a local man. The man, Michael Ronning, claimed to have known the young woman before her death. He said she had introduced herself as Judy, a hitchhiker traveling from California. Disturbingly, Ronning was also the one who discovered her remains, a coincidence that made investigators suspicious about his involvement in the case. Judy was estimated to be between 17 and 20 years old, standing just 5 feet tall and weighing approximately 100 pounds. She had light brown, fine, straight hair and coral or orange-painted fingernails. Her left ear was pierced, though no earring was found. She was missing her 2 upper teeth, and several others were stained reddish-purple, likely due to tetracycline exposure or a condition like dentinogenesis imperfecta. She wore Wrangler blue jeans, a long nightshirt with the phrase, "Have you kissed your child tonight?", a black t-shirt reading, "Here comes trouble," and tan canvas slip-on shoes with blue trim. Around her neck, she wore a simple 15-inch metal chain. Her attire and lack of personal belongings suggested she was living a transient life, yet her identity remained a mystery. Michael Ronning, the drifter who claimed to have known Judy and discovered her body, was a convicted murderer and suspected serial killer. However, he died in the early 2000s while serving a life sentence. While he did pass a polygraph, they are not admissible in court due to their inaccuracies. In 2023, authorities partnered with the forensic genealogy company Othram in order to use their advanced DNA testing. In December 2024, with the help of Othram, investigators identified Judy Doe as Rebecca Sue Hill, a 16 or 17-year-old teenager who had gone missing from Arkansas in 1981. In a tragic twist, in either 1981 or 1982, an unidentified body found in Little Rock, Arkansas, was mistakenly identified by Rebecca's family as her, leading to Rebecca never being listed as a missing person. In February 2002, nearly 20 years after her death, Dateline NBC aired a segment about Ronning. Their investigation brought new attention to his possible connection to Judy's murder, uncovering a traffic ticket that was issued to him 1 day before her remains were found. This prompted Lake County detectives to revisit his potential involvement. They were able to trace his movements around the time of Rebecca's murder and discovered that he had been living in Lake County, Florida at the time and had been pulled over by the Umatilla police just 1 day before her body was found. Within 10 days of her murder, Ronning abruptly left Lake County. In a later Dateline interview, he allegedly implied knowledge about the then unidentified Judy Doe case in Altoona, further strengthening suspicions about his involvement. However, he's never been charged in connection with her death. Rebecca Sue Hill was found murdered in April of 1984, and as of February 2025, this case remains unsolved. Shelley Joy Desrochers was born on February 4, 1974. At age 42, Shelley lived in London, Canada, located in Ontario. Her life was shaped by a difficult childhood, as she was the daughter of abusive parents and spent much of her youth in and out of foster care. Despite her struggles, she was known for her positive outlook, with friends and family describing her as a caring and happy-go-lucky person. Shelley was a mother of 3 children and a grandmother. Unfortunately, she faced numerous hardships, including PTSD and substance abuse, which led to her to engage in prostitution for cash. She had previously attempted to turn her life around by attending rehab and returning to school, but was unable to achieve lasting stability. Due to her lifestyle, she was well known at My Sister's Place, a women's drop-in shelter and counseling agency in London. Unfortunately, during the winter of December 2015, she strangely disappeared. The last confirmed conversation with Shelley occurred on December 31, 2015, when she spoke with her sister Laura. Shelley mentioned plans to spend New Year's Eve at her boyfriend's house, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The last confirmed sighting of Shelley was on January 2, 2016, at 2 p.m., when a police officer saw her in the area of Lorne Avenue and English Street in London's Old East Village. This was also the last day she was active on Facebook. Some sources suggest that she may have been seen again on January 5th near Hamilton Road and Rectory Street, an area known for prostitution, but this sighting has not been confirmed. On January 21, 2016, police received a request for a welfare check after Shelley's family and friends had not heard from her for weeks. Unable to locate her, authorities launched a missing persons investigation. Over time, police recovered her purse and health card. Her purse, containing her cell phone, was found in a home associated with drug-related activity, and her health card was discovered 3 years later in the parking lot of a walk-in clinic on Hamilton Road. In early 2021, the Canadian organization Please Bring Me Home, which focuses on cold cases, announced they had received information about a possible suspect in Shelley's disappearance. They are working to verify how this person had access to Shelley at the time she vanished before taking the information to the police. Police have conducted forensic examinations, reviewed her social media activity, and analyzed her financial records in hopes of uncovering new leads. Several theories have emerged regarding Shelley's disappearance. Some community members speculate that Shelley intentionally ran away to start anew. However, neither her family nor police support this theory, as she was close with loved ones and has not accessed her bank account since vanishing. Authorities have publicly stated that if Shelley is in hiding, she is not wanted by police and is not the subject of any investigation that would prevent her from coming forward. Given Shelley's involvement in prostitution and substance abuse, some believe she might be the victim of foul play, either as a result of an encounter that turned deadly or due to someone attempting to cover up her death. Despite limited physical evidence, police acknowledge that it is highly likely Shelley is deceased. Shelley's case has been linked to the disappearance of Catherine Bordeaux, another London woman last seen 7 years ago in July 2009 near Cavendish Park. Catherine, like Shelley, was involved in a high-risk lifestyle and struggled with addiction. They were also linked to the same man, and Shelley's last known Facebook login occurred at that man's home. Shelley stood 5 foot 2 inches tall, weighing 130 pounds, with long, straight, dark blonde to black hair and hazel eyes. She has a distinctive walking style described as pigeon-toed. She has 3 tattoos, a tiny blue bird on one shoulder, a heart with a rose on the other shoulder, and a whale with the word Kevin across the back of her shoulders. Shelley went missing on January 2, 2016, and as of February 2025, she remains missing, and this case remains unsolved.